Hello everyone, welcome back to Team Chaos MTG on YouTube. I am Dodge, you're watching, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. So last week I was testing Sultai Elder Giant, featuring everybody's favoriteest good boy, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Yeah, he didn't really work out for me, to say the least. He just did a bunch of mediocre things in a mediocre deck built by a mediocre me. And that's fine. I'm not perfect. Not worried about it. Had a lot of fun. I still think that maybe there's a world where the Sultai Elder Giant deck works out and you can play the control game with some big dudes coming in around your spot removal, your Thoughtseizes, all the things that in retrospect make me very, very sad. But I'm okay, because I made some new friends. Old friends. I reconnected with some old friends. So, what we're talking about today, what I'll be streaming with for the rest of this week, and that hopefully will work out, is Azorius Spirits. Now, I played with the Bant Spirits deck when it was in Standard, after Selfless Spirit was printed, Rattle Chain, Spell Queller, Coco, and it was really, really fun. And I wish that I had anticipated it becoming a deck in Modern. And now that we live in the era of Pioneer, I think it was probably pretty obvious to just about everyone that the deck was going to do something in that format as well. Now, I've played around with the version that actually has Collected Company and does some other green things, and I have to say it just felt a bit clunky. And right now, the format's dominated by other mid-range strategies, burn decks, aggro decks, control decks, combo decks. Not so much the control decks, and that's exactly why the tempo version of Blue-White Spirit seems like the perfect deck that I'm not playing and that I will totally 5-0 leagues with, because God help me, my record has to get better than this. So let's go ahead, take a look at the curve, see what the deck is doing, what it wants to do, and how it's going to do it, because it's gonna do it. It's gonna. The deck starts off with a bunch of 1-drops because it absolutely has to. This is very much expected of mono blue tempo decks. That's also very much expected of basically any Spirits build right now. A full playset of Mausoleum Wanderer helps us shut down our opponent's instant and sorcery spells, as well as providing a solid beater. Spectral Sailor just draws us a ton of cards. We just want to draw a ton of cards. Now, a lot of the lists are playing 4. I decided to go with 3 so that we could make room for some other one-ofs and fun-ofs in the deck. And realistically, I think this is fine. We're going to create so much advantage, and we have other ways to draw cards and manipulate our deck. So I think 3 Spectral Sailor is okay, especially with what we replaced the 4th with. But before we get to talking about replacing creatures, let's talk about replacing non-creature spells, because we only have 3, and they look like this. 2 Curious Obsession normally would be 3 Curious Obsession, but there's this new card called Staggering Insight. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but it's a Curious Obsession for white-blue instead of just blue, and it gives the enchanted creature lifelink. This seems fine. I understand that it's double the mana, and yes, the mana cost is more restrictive, requiring 2 colors to cast it, but I don't think this is a bad thing. I mean, life gain is something that this deck is sorely lacking already, and just a little bit of it when we're already doing something we were trying to do anyway. It doesn't feel like the increased cost is backbreaking. I'm sure it would be if we were playing 3 of these and no Curious Obsession, but for right now, I think I'm happy with 1. Next up, we have our Protect boys, Rattle Chains and Selfless Spirit, both 4-ofs, both incredible. Rattle Chains not only giving another spirit hexproof or itself hexproof if you just don't have another target for it, that's solid. Also giving our other spirit spells flash is insane, and it's too much value, too much of a body to pass up for anything else. Selfless Spirit's very much in the same camp. While it doesn't have flash, it's the same body for the same cost, albeit in a different color. And sacking it to give all of our other creatures indestructible for the turn, that's way too good. That's too much value to be passing up for anything else. And so we've got a full set of them. Also coming in full sets are our Lords. We've got 4 Supreme Phantoms and 4 Empyrean Eagles, and the same logic applies to these. They're just too good to not play a full set of. And we've got more cards that are too good not to play 4 of in the form of Spell Quellers. It's a Spell Queller. I shouldn't have to explain to you why this card is absolutely insane. Next up, we do have a couple of 1-ofs in the form of Nebelgast Herald and Remorseful Cleric. Now, most blue-white spirits decks that I've found online are playing more than one Herald, and for good reason. It's a huge tempo play, but we already have a lot of tempo plays going on, and the prominence of decks like Underworld Breach and Is It Phoenix have me wondering if maybe we don't just want a single Remorseful Cleric in the deck. I mean, it just gets rid of our opponent's graveyard for no cost other than sacrificing it. It triggers our other spirits that have cool triggered abilities, like our Nebelgast Herald, Mausoleum Wanderer. That's awesome. Yeah, I think this card is awesome. I think 1 is correct in the main. And in the final slots for the spells in our decks, we have a full set of Brazen Borrower and a single Deputy of Detention. Now, Deputy I did struggle over, but I think that it's well positioned enough that it's worth including. This is going to clear the field of any pesky permanents that are in our way, things that are making attacking or drawing cards unattainable for us. And while it isn't a spirit, it feels within the spirit of the deck. And also it's on color. So yeah, we're just gonna play one of these. 4 Brazen Borrower, again not spirits, but we don't care. It bounces a thing, and then we get to flash it in as a flyer, and our Empyrean Eagles make it bigger if nothing else does, and that's grand. And that's also it for the spell portion of the deck. The mana base is pretty basic. We have 6 islands and 1 plains making up our basic land count. There's also a full playset of Hallowed Fountains and Glacial Fortresses, ensuring that we do have the colors of mana we need when we need them. After this, we find 2 Port Town and 2 Irrigated Farmland. Port Town doing a pretty good impression of a Glacial Fortress, and Irrigated Farmlands, while they do come in tapped, also cycle. That's just another important feature that I don't think is actually going to hinder the deck at all. Sure, if we only have an Irrigated Farmland and comes in tapped on turn 1, and then we have another Irrigated Farmland coming in tapped on turn 2, we're not doing what we want to be doing with the deck. But if we see an opening hand with 2 Irrigated Farmlands and no other lands, we're probably just going to mulligan. Next up, we move on to our 1-of lands. First of those is Castle Ardenvale. Now, the castle isn't making spirits, it isn't doing anything to move our general theme forward, but it does make a bunch of dudes, it survives sweepers, and having access to a relatively inexpensive army when we've run out of other resources probably isn't the worst thing. After this, we find 2 Mutavault and a Mana Confluence. The Confluence, again, just making sure that we have the colors of mana available when we need them. And the Mutavault's doing a very good imitation of being a spirit, because even though they don't fly, they are actually a spirit, picking up the buffs from our lords, and all in all giving us another way to close out the game besides Castle Ardenvale if we run out of creatures in hand and don't have any way to fill the board back up. The sideboard carries with it a bevy of removal spells, 2 Devout Decree, 2 Declaration in Stone, and 2 Settle the Wreckage, all of which should add up to us being pretty safe against other aggressive and creature-based strategies, especially those where they're going to fill the board up bigger than we are, or one of their threats can deal with multiples of ours. Now, while our main deck does feature plenty of cards that can counter, exile, or nerf our opponent's spells, that doesn't mean we don't want counter magic in the sideboard, especially in the form of Mystical Dispute. 3 of these ensure that we're safe from the mirror match, control decks, Izzet strategies, mono blue tempo, Thassa's Oracle, anything that's tiny and problematic and also a blue spell. And these are even okay mid-game, but by that point we really want to have taken over, and if we're casting these into anything and our opponent still has a few lands up, they're basically dead, if not worse. Worse being us being dead. After this, we find a Singleton Dovin's Veto and 2 Disdainful Stroke. Stroke being a perfect card for us in that it hits the things our Spell Queller doesn't, we don't need a lot of them, we want them late game, and we want them when we've already established a pretty sizable board presence, so getting 2 mana open every turn just in case we need one is incredibly doable. The 1 Dovin's Veto, that doesn't need any explanation, it's just a way to make sure that the control decks or the combo decks aren't able to take over and aren't able to protect themselves from our counter magic. Now, Spell Queller doesn't counter at exile, so it does hit things like Supreme Verdict, but Dovin's Veto goes the extra mile in making sure that there is no response from our opponent, and that we do get to counter whatever is the problem. Lastly, we find a couple of Rest in Peace backing up our main board Graveyard Hate, and another Deputy of Detention. I'll be honest, the second Deputy could be just about anything, but there are a lot of things running around in the format right now that resemble a young Pyromancer, a Token Maker, a Planeswalker, or enchantment strategies, and we don't really have a lot of ways to deal with any random permanent, so a second Deputy of Detention filling out the last slot in the sideboard seemed okay. And that's the deck. No sideboard guide, no grand expectations, we're just going over the deck, and maybe if it does well for me, I'll come back and talk some more about it, and give you guys a full sideboard guide and all of that good stuff, but for now, I just hope that this goes better than the last week of Pioneer testing has for me, and I think that it will. So leave a comment down below and let me know what you guys think, any changes you would make, any decks you want to see me feature in the future. You can also follow on social media, just click all of the buttons. As always, buttons are free to click. You just click the button, and that's it. Nobody sends you a bill. It's pretty much the last free thing you can do in the world. So click stuff, get notifications, find out when I'm going live, watch me play this deck in action, misplay this deck in action. I'm really ready to do a lot of losing, and you guys can enjoy it. So, as always, I've been Dodge, you've been watching, that's been awesome, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks again for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do whatever it is you do that lets people know you're watching.